Bush. Alright guys, today I'm going to show you how I edit a portrait. I'm not a professional. I've just learned some things from some of my favorite photographers, and I'm going to share that with you guys, how I get what I get when I edit a picture. Basically, I'm going to turn this picture into this picture. And this is just going to be a video showing how I go through Lightroom and Photoshop and all of that. Usually it can take between 15 minutes to 2 hours. It really depends on you. You'll understand once you see what the process looks like. So let's just get into it. First of all, we're gonna open Lightroom. Once you're in Lightroom, you're gonna import the picture that you plan on using. Here's my picture. This is what I'm gonna use. First off, I'm gonna get into develop. The first thing I do is I crop the picture to whatever size I want. So in this case, usually if it's portrait, I'm gonna crop it to the Instagram size, which would be 4x5 or 8x10. And then you're gonna have to center the model on your picture. So that seems about right. It just kind of goes by feel. Once you have that done, you want to make sure that the picture is straight, so you can use the vertical lines in the picture. Seems about right. Make sure that her eyes are centered. Close that. Then the second thing I do is I go into the tone curve and just set the tone curve that I want. Tone curve that I use for portraits is usually the same. What I do is, first of all, create the 3 points that you should always create when you're working with the tone curve. So you're gonna make one in the middle, you're gonna make one in the first quarter, and then separate in the third and fourth quarters. I'm gonna bring the first one a little bit up, just enough to give it a little bit of fade, but not too much. If it was like more of an Instagram photo, I'd give it more fade. In this case, this is enough. And then I'm gonna bring this one down a little bit, just so that there's more of an S curve to it. And then the last thing I do is I bring the top one down a little bit so that the whites are not too white whenever you put this picture on mine. So now we're done with the tone curve. Once the picture is cropped to what you want and you got your tone curve set, you get into the colors and just everything else of the picture. Once we're here, you choose the temperature that I want. Usually I go a little warm, but not too warm. I don't touch the tints usually unless the picture is too green or too magenta, which is not the case. Then exposure, usually I don't touch it just because I usually try to get the setting right on camera, which I did in this case. Then contrast, I'm going to bring it up. When I'm editing portraits, I want to leave it around 50, a little bit more, a little bit less. 45 seems about right. Then the highlights, I tend to bring them down, not too much, just to show you those whites that usually are just washed out. And bring the shadows up just so you can see the detail in those shadows that you couldn't see before. Usually I like to bring the whites up just because we brought that white back down with the highlights, and now we actually want to see things that are actually white. In this case, I'm not going to do it too much. And now I'm going to bring the blacks down to give it that contrasty feeling. Once that's done, I don't touch the clarity for portraits. I'm going to bring the vibrance down to around -25. That's just what I usually do. Bring the saturation up to 5. Tap Y. You can see the before and after of the picture so far. It's looking pretty good. This way you can adjust a little more. So that looks pretty good for the basic. Next we're going to go into the HSL, which stands for Hue, Saturation, and Luminance. I usually start with the saturation. In this case, the reds are literally just her lips. I want to make those pop a little bit, but not too much. You'll see why. Then the oranges are going to be her skin tones, which you want to bring up. And then the yellows are going to be her hair in this case, which usually I like to bring down. Blonde people in general, I don't want to bring the yellows up too much, just because usually you can tell that the person is blonde even if there's no yellow. The rest of the colors don't show up on the picture, so we don't need to touch them. Then I'm going to go into luminance, and now again the red is going to be the lips. Bring them out a little bit, not too much. Orange is going to be skin tones, again the same, and yellow is going to be the hair. Finally, the hue. I like to make the lips look a little more natural colored, so I'm going to turn a little bit to the oranges. Not going to touch the orange, just skin tone, and then I'm going to make the yellows a little bit less green. You can see if I did that, you should kind of have red hair. If I did that, you should have green hair. In the middle, that's what we were at. I'm just going to make it a little bit less green, and that's it. Finally, last step in the Lightroom process is the split toning. Now, split toning, in my opinion, is a very personal thing. Kind of sets the style of the picture. I personally like to put my highlights in a yellowish orange tone, and you do that right down. Then my shadows in a greenish teal tone down there. And by clicking this button, you can check the before and after of the split toning. As you can see, that kind of gives you the tone of what I was going for, maybe a little less. Apply, and here we have our Lightroom edit. I'm not going to touch lens correction because I would only do so if I had shot in a wide lens. I shot this with a 50, so the lens is not distorted. I'm not gonna transform it because I would usually use the transform tab only for architectural pictures to make sure that all the vertical lines are vertical, and then I'm not gonna touch the effects, don't need a vignette or anything like that. I just usually don't use that. We're then in Lightroom now. Next step would be to go back into library and choose the picture that you're using and bring it into Photoshop. So right click, edit in Photoshop. Now we're done with the Lightroom part. That was pretty easy. It's usually pretty fast. It's the fastest part of the process. It's where you really set the tone for the picture. All we're going to do in Photoshop now is clean most of the face, just make it look a little more professional. It takes more time. Usually you can stay in the Lightroom part of it only if you really want to get into it. To me, it's just a hobby that I really enjoy. You're going to do this part. So for this part, I'm going to use this Wacom bamboo with this pen. So we're in Photoshop now. So the first thing I do is frequency separation. Some of you might know what that means. Frequency separation, first thing you do is hit Command J. Do that again. So now you have two copies of the background. You're going to select the first one and you're going to apply a Gaussian blur to it. Usually I do about 5. You can see here what the amount of detail is. We'll see what the difference is. 5.8 seems about right. Then you're going to go into your layer 1, copy, your second copy of the background, and you're going to go to image, apply image. You're going to choose here your first copy of the layer, blending mode, subtract, just leave everything else like it is. Hit OK. Come into the blending mode over here and choose linear light. Now if you group these two layers, Command G, and you make that invisible, it shouldn't make any difference in the picture. If you hide this one, it's going to get blurry. If you hide this one, it's going to do the exact opposite. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to get into the layer 1. Going to grab the lasso tool, zoom in, and basically what we're going to do now is we're going to work on the colors. So we're going to make sure that whatever colors on our face don't seem natural or that they don't flow, we're going to merge them together and just make it look more natural, I guess. So select an area just like that. Make sure that your feather is at 32 around ish pixels. Make sure that your alias is selected, and then you go into filter, blur, Gaussian blur again, and now basically you just, so that's what it looked like with no blur. Just move that up until that seems like there's no more of those reds in there. See? And then you just do that throughout the face. That looks pretty good. Just like most of these processes, you could spend hours doing that. You could spend just a few minutes. If you click this little light, you'll see what the before and after looks like. Basically just made the colors more uniform throughout her face. Usually I would do that in more parts of the skin. In this case she's wearing a sweater, so I'm not. So next we're going to select layer 1 copy, which is our second copy of the background, where we have the frequency. And what we're going to do now is select the clone stamp tool, and basically all we're going to do is select a frequency that we want to copy, and basically just paint that over whatever is irregular on her skin. Just copy and then paint over, and that's it. Make sure to get the neck and other areas, just like hands and stuff. That looks pretty good before and after. Then select the group and make sure to bring the opacity down. We tend to exaggerate, just make sure that it looks realistic. That looks pretty good. So now we're gonna get into dodging and burning. Now, dodging and burning is what most people know about. It's the most common part of retouching. What you're gonna do is you're gonna paint white on the whites, and you're gonna paint dark color black on the blacks. Pretty straightforward, and I'm gonna make it even more simpler for you. So you're gonna create a new layer, Shift Option Command N. Gonna make sure to select your dodge and burn brush. If you don't have a dodge and burn brush, which I'm assuming you don't, just go up online and find one. You can download one for free. I'll try to find one and put one in the description for you guys, just that you don't have to go through the trouble of creating a new one. So make sure that your flow is at about 5%. Make sure that you're painting with white. And all you're gonna do is literally paint white on the highlights or white areas of the skin. So holding Control and Option, you can make the size of the brush bigger or smaller. You might be thinking, Andre, this looks kind of weird. Just gotta go into the blending mode and put it in soft light, just so that it looks more natural. If there are any areas that you want to remove, just select E to select the eraser, and literally just erase over those areas. And that's it. So double click layer 2, and then what we're going to do is hold Alt and click in this underlying layer and move it to the right. You see the blacks kind of merge with the whites more a little bit. You want to make sure it's around there is about right. So we're going to create a new layer, Shift Option Command N. What we're going to do is select the skin color and then bring it down in luminance, just so we're not painting with black and is more of a natural color. Hit B to select your brush, and now we're just going to do the exact same that you did before. Soft light, and then just paint dark in the dark areas. And then again, double click the layer, hold Alt, and now we're going to click the white side and again merge those whites with the darker areas. Just going to bring it all the way to the left. That looks about good. Now group those layers, bring the opacity down just so it looks more natural. Again, tend to exaggerate when you're doing this, so just want to make sure that it looks as natural as possible. That looks pretty good. Zoom out a little bit. Check. Looks good. That was pretty simple. Of course, that usually professionals spend hours doing that. You could spend a whole day's work just dodging and burning, you can also spend like 5 minutes doing it, and it's definitely going to make your picture look at least a little bit better. Next we're going to get into the eyes and the sharpening of the picture in general. That's the quickest part in Photoshop, so we're almost done. So we're going to create a new layer again, Shift Option Command N. So we're going to zoom into the eyes and make sure that we choose the color of the eyes. So hit I to choose that eye color, bring it up in saturation and luminance. And then hit B to select your brush. This time we're just going to use a regular brush. Make sure that the hardness is at about 90% and that the flow is also at 90%. Now all you're going to do is literally just paint over her eye color. Make sure that you're painting on the opposite side of the source of your source of light, and just paint. Do the same on both eyes. Now you're going to do the same for other colors that she has in her eyes. Usually people with blue or green eyes, this is more noticeable, but we're just going to use another type of orange. Create a new layer, again Shift Alt or Option Command N, and just do it again. Now that might look pretty weird, but we're gonna fix it, so don't worry about it. So you're gonna make sure that the blending mode is overlaying both layers. You're gonna select each of them and apply a blur, Gaussian blur again. And here you just whatever you prefer so that the color looks more natural. Do the same on the other one. And you can do this more than 2 times. If you see that the eye has more than 2 colors, especially green or blue eyes, just do it another time and do the exact same thing. That looks pretty good. Obviously no one has red in there, so you want to bring that down just so it's really subtle. And then group those and again bring both down. Just so that the color looks realistic. With people with brown eyes, usually I keep it around the 70s. If it was someone with green or blue eyes, you want to make that pop even more. That's it for the colors. Now we're gonna make sure that we brighten up those eyes just so that they pop a little bit more. So what we're gonna do is come down here and hit curves in the adjustment layers. Bring the center up and then hit Command I so that we invert it. Now using your brush, you're going to paint white over the bright areas of the eye, of course, again on the opposite side of wherever that source of light is. Do the same on the other side. Apply a blur to it. Then we're going to do this again, adjustment layer, curves, bring it down, invert it again, and now we're going to paint white on the dark areas of the eye. Apply the blur again. I don't want to overdo this dark part. So make sure to bring that opacity down substantially and group those and bring the opacity of both down a little bit. Looks pretty good. And that's it for the eyes. That was quick. Now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to bring a little bit of detail out of the eyes and some other small areas. Just make sure that the image is just popping as much as we want it to. So we're going to create a new layer, Shift Option Command N, Shift Option Command E to copy the background. And then we're going to do Shift Command U to desaturate it. Going to make sure that the blending mode's overlay. Going to go up here to Filter, Other, High Pass. And that's the detail that we're adding onto the picture, so it's whatever you prefer. And obviously don't want to go too much because it doesn't look good. That looks pretty good. So now create a mask, and if it doesn't show up, just like it doesn't on mine, make sure to hit Command I to invert it. And all you gotta do is just paint on the areas that you want to make sharper. So we're gonna get her eyes. Get her eyelashes. Eyebrows. Just those little areas around there to make those eyes pop. Got her lips a little bit, and that's it. Just gives it that little extra touch. We're done. So now we're gonna make sure to save this. Hit Command S. So that's it with Photoshop. Now once you save it, it's going to show up on your Lightroom, so you can close your Photoshop. Back in Lightroom, here we are. We have our first edited picture, and then what we did in Photoshop right after it. And that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Thank you to Gabby for modeling and letting me do this. I hope that taught someone something. I really enjoy doing this kind of stuff, so please let me know if I should do more tutorials of this kind. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this, or just vlogs in general, kind of trying a little bit of everything. Like this video, comment so that we can get some conversation started. Jesus loves you. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.